People, people who need people are the luckiest people in the world. So sang Barbra Streisand and Jeremy Clarkson. After weeks of empty arena atmos, we have people on Raw, and believe me, the Raw roster are a people who need people. But did the presence of people perk up the programming? Let's pontificate. This is Raw Graded. So yeah, we have a crowd on Raw. It is WWE and NXT trainees behind plexiglass, but it's a crowd nonetheless. Big shouts to center right next to the ramp, former 3-Count Wrestling World Champion Luke Menzies. I see you there. Yorkshire boy, I see you there. Nice. Kevin Owens welcomes us to Monday Night Raw and the Kevin Owens Show. He brings out his guest, Asuka, who is energetic as always. He asks Asuka about Nia Jax's recent shenanigans. Before she can give a real answer, she's interrupted by Charlotte Flair, reminding Asuka that she's beaten her before. They're interrupted by Natalya, which causes Kevin Owens to take down some of the set to save Natalya destroying it again. And Natalya is apologetic for her tantrum last week. Before we can go any further with that, Nia Jax comes out. Kev takes his leave, knowing what's coming here. Stands on the ring apron as Nia Jax sizes up Asuka. Kev says, "Whatever you do, Asuka, do not hit her in the face." So Asuka hits her in the face. Brawl breaks out, Jax takes a powder, and Asuka stands tall at the end to kick off Raw. It's a B- for this. I don't know whether it was just the way the whole segment was put together or whether I was just ebullient to hearing live crowd on a WWE show again. Either way, it was a really fun way to open the show. I'm really glad they're doing this. This is the last time I'll labour about the live crowd. AEW have been nailing this for a couple of weeks now by having the guys at ringside, so I'm really glad WWE are following suit. The plexiglass is there. Presumably to say to shareholders, look, we are taking this very seriously. We've got plexiglass up to stop the pandemic leaking through. It's probably why they did it, but regardless of who did it first, AEW or WWE, it's nice to see people. Andrade defends his US Championship next against Apollo Crews, despite a back elbow early on into this match for a near fall. This is pretty much all challenger over champion. Zelina Vega gets on the apron. She ends up being knocked off by Andrade when he gets kicked into her accidentally. We're seeing medical teams checking on Vega just as they go to break. This seems to fire up Andrade, who starts taking over on Apollo Crews for this match. We go backstage sort of 3/4 of the way through it, where Kayla Braxton is interviewing Angel Garza, and he says a wrestling match is very much like making love to a beautiful woman. Angel Garza has been watching the Fast Show. Shortly after this, we come back to the match, and all of a sudden, he counters something off the top rope, does Apollo Crews, hits a military press, 2 standing shooting star presses, 1, 2, 3. Out of nowhere, we have a brand spanking new US champion. Apollo Crews is on the mic celebrating 11 years of hard work, whilst Andrade is destroying the place backstage. B+ for your opening match tonight. Great work from these two. A shorter match than they've had previously, but they put it together very nicely indeed. I was worried about the build-up for Apollo Crews, to be honest with you. I thought they'd cooled on him, but clearly they'd really built up to this moment, and it came out of nowhere. The finish did. There was not much in the way of like a power struggle back for Crews. Just all of a sudden, bang, he won the belt. I guess wrestling matches are like making love to a beautiful woman. There's a lot of build-up, and it ends very abruptly. Seth Rollins is backstage holding Rey Mysterio's mask. He says that Rey made a sacrifice for the greater good. He introduces Austin Theory as the newest member of his gang. The disciples are going to prove their loyalty later on, and they are going to teach a lesson to Aleister Black and Humberto Carrillo. Theory's a great fit for this group. Charlie Caruso talks to Charlotte Flair backstage about possibly becoming a double champion. Asuka interrupts her and said, "Red is not your colour," and then walks off dancing. That's it. Simple but effective. Anything that involves Asuka dancing is good for me. Out come the IIconics and their friends. Thank goodness. Billie Kay apologizes to Peyton Royce. They get back on the same page. All pals at the palace, to quote my nanny Doris. And they talk about how the WWE Women's Tag Team titles are held by a crazy lady and the office's favorite blonde, Alexa Bliss. This brings out Cross and Bliss. Cross gets shut down immediately when she tries to speak, and this starts a fire in the guts of Nikki Cross, and she cuts the promo of her career. Just lights up, talks about how she scratched and clawed to get opportunity, whilst people like the IIconics laughed at her and shut her down. She talks about her friendship with Alexa Bliss, how Alexa Bliss actually took a chance on her. Talks about how Alexa Bliss has taught Cross things in life, how Nikki has taught Alexa Bliss the value of friendship, and she can't think of anything more iconic than that. And use of the word iconic wakes up Peyton and Kay, who just sideswipe Bliss and Cross, wipe them both out. Bliss gets knocked to the outside, and Cross gets that double face buster from the IIconics. They end the segment holding the women's tag team titles up high. This was a B+. The majority of this grade is for the promo by Nikki Cross. The last time that Nikki cut anything really like this on the mic was back in NXT, in my opinion, when she was doing the Nikki's got a secret thing. This was real. This was raw. The IIconics not splitting up helps the grade as well. I was very nervous for a while. But the Cross and Bliss relationship's an interesting one, because Cross really leans very heavy on how Alexa Bliss is her friend, and you kind of see this heelish smile from Bliss all the while through it. It's just the standard smile that Bliss always does. I can't help but feel like my kayfabe sense is tingling, and it feels like they're moving towards like a heartbreaking breakup for Bliss and Cross. I feel like Bliss is gonna turn on Cross. I'm just gonna put it into the universe. Can't say I'm happy about it, but I feel like that's what's happening. But either way, in this moment in time, Nikki Cross, take a bow. Outstanding mic work. The VIP lounge is up next, which is when I realised, okay, this is going to be a talk-heavy Raw. This is what we do now. Okay. MVP invites out the soon-to-be former WWE champion, Drew McIntyre. MVP reminds Drew that a while back he pitched to him to become his manager, and Drew responded with a Claymore kick. Drew says, well, you don't need to call it a Claymore kick. It's obvious that it's a kick. Just call it a Claymore. MVP then says after that Claymore, he realised that Drew McIntyre was going to be WWE champion, and he needed to be the one to make him lose that title, hence bringing in Lashley. Drew says that Lashley was right last week when he said, "You'll have to prize the belt from my cold, dead hands." This brings out Lashley. But before Lashley can get into the ring, Drew is there. Boom! Claymore to MVP. MVP rolls out of the ring and Lashley helps him to the back. No square off right now between Drew and Lashley, because Lashley's too concerned with getting MVP away. B- for this. I graded it down a bit just because I feel like now we're in this. It's too many promos back to back now. There's too much talking on this Raw. You talk too much. But B- for it was short, it was succinct, they got the point away, and they continued to build their match at Backlash in a good fashion. So it was still good, just don't want so much talking. Can't grade it anything lower than a B-. Natalya's being interviewed backstage, but she's cut off because her phone goes. She goes and takes a call from her husband, Tyson Kidd, talking about how she was apologising earlier on for her meltdown last week. Clearly, things unhappy in the home of Tyson Kidd and Natalya. She hangs up the phone, goes back to the interview in which Charlie Caruso says, "No, we're out of time." Oh, and you could just see Natalya seething, like another meltdown is on the horizon. Kevin Owens and Angel Garza up next. As Owens makes his way to the ring, Garza chop blocks Owens, but the match kicks off during the break. The whole story of the match is Garza working over the leg of Owens, and every time Owens gets a little bit back into the fight, he gets cut down by Garza. In the end, Owens goes for a pop-up powerbomb, but his leg gives out, so he can't finish the move. Shortly after, eats the wing clipper for the 1, 2, 3. And after the match, as the music's playing for Garza, just for good measure, he kicks Owens' leg from out of his leg, just for the banter. B- for this. Good match, short match, told a good story, building to something hopefully between Garza and Owens. This is Garza's biggest win of his career. I feel like this could have been more. This could have been a bit more, but it was what it was. I feel like Raw at the moment is a lot of short, sharp matches. So if that's what we're going with, we'll grade it on a curve. We'll give it a B-. It's time for the third part of the Viking Raiders Street Profits Sporting Series. They're playing golf in this one. Profits are good at golf. Viking Raiders are rubbish. They're throwing the clubs around. They're throwing the balls out of sand traps. They're breaking mini golf carts. They get kicked off the golf course, so they go and play mini golf instead. And cut to a short, fun vignette of Street Profits and Viking Raiders having a laugh playing mini golf. There's just some lovely moments in this, some cute moments. Like you very briefly see Eric, who has like 4 or 5 clubs all sellotaped together, and he's using that for a shot in the match. They get told off by the management of the mini golf place, and she says, "Oh, I'll let you off because you're cute," referring to Ivar. This is the gag. Everybody fancies Ivar. Hashtag fancies Ivar. Sorry, Martina. It ends Raiders 144, Street Profits 28. Raiders are celebrating until the Profits tell them that it's the lowest score that wins in mini golf, so the Street Profits win. Afterwards, they pull some random objects out of the final hole, and Ivar threatens to beat up an alligator. I'm giving this a B+. I've been really down on these Street Profits Viking Raiders segments over the last couple of weeks because they've been paced out over the show and nothing's really happened in any segment. So what they did for this, they just stuck it all in one segment. And it wasn't a massively long one, and you know what? It was funny, it was bright, it was well put together, made me smile. Wish they'd gone to Pirate Adventure though, which was the golf course, I think a little bit down the road from the one they went to. Just a better golf course in my opinion. Lana brings MVP a bag of ice for his Claymore face, and MVP dismisses it. Lashley gives us a mean side eye and she screams and gets angry again. Lana still trying to get back into the good books of Bobby Lashley, and we move into a tag team match which we built earlier on in the night. It's Aleister Black and Humberto Carrillo taking on the Disciples Murphy and Austin Theory. I thought this might go the distance. Turns out I'm very wrong. Less than 5 minutes. But they condense it all into this much time. Just heavy strikes from everybody, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. We see Carrillo go for a moonsault on Theory, but miss. He manages to roll through it and kick Murphy off of the apron, which looked really cool, but then ends up eating the ATL from Theory for the 1, 2, 3. After the match, Seth Rollins is directing traffic. They've grabbed Humberto Carrillo's head after chucking Aleister Black into the timekeeper's area. They've got Carrillo's head and they've got him up against the steel stairs. They're going to gouge his eye out again. Black's there with a chair. Rollins stops him and says, if you come any further, we're going to take his eye out. And then Seth Rollins warns Aleister Black and Humberto Carrillo to stay out of their business, otherwise the same fate will happen to them as happened to Rey Mysterio. Once they realise that they're not going to fight, they throw Humberto Carrillo to the ground and take their leave. Oh, this was intense. B+ for me. Love this bit. Nice and intense. I love how the Seth Rollins character has evolved so much in the last couple of weeks. I feel like there's been more done with this whole Messiah thing in the last few weeks as there has been since before WrestleMania. You get this, there's some really good character development from Rollins, and also Theory's a great fit for this team as well. I like Theory and Murphy as a dynamic. That's really cool too. And it's just the wording as well that Rollins uses, when he had Aleister Black and Humberto Carrillo down and backed off, he said, "Don't make me sacrifice you like I did Rey Mysterio." Just the changing of the wording and stuff that Seth's doing is really powerful. I love this bit. Edge is backstage. He says Orton caught him on the back foot last week, and there is doubt in Edge about whether he can wrestle again. He says that Randy Orton has competed in 1,126 matches while he was out of action. And Edge says, though, he has competed with the highest tiers of talent. He's become, as he calls himself, a 5-tool workhorse. Edge admitted that everything he talked about was in the past tense, and he doesn't know if he can still do it. He says he's going to go to the depths of his soul and try, because that is all a man can do. Whoa. A- for my boy Edge. I feel like a grade Edge is always really high, but I can't help it. I think he's setting the bar when it comes to promos all the time. And as I talked about for over the last couple of weeks, I'm in awe of how they've dialed back the stipulation but made it feel like so much more important than a last man standing match. That's really great storytelling, that is. What I'm not over the moon with is how much they're beating over our head the whole greatest wrestling match ever thing. Well, they are setting these guys up big style, aren't they? The big graphics, the greatest wrestling match ever. The use of Panic at the Disco's version of The Greatest Show as the soundtrack to Backlash. No pressure, lads, but we're about to see the greatest wrestling match ever. We better get Meltzer on the line. We better move this to the Tokyo Dome immediately. After the Viking Raiders challenged the Street Profits to a bowling contest, MVP and Lashley approach Street Profits and call them clowns. Street Profits give MVP a little bit of jip for taking a Claymore earlier. This results in our main event being booked. Street Profits to face MVP and Lashley in tag team action later on tonight. Before that, it is the #1 contenders match, Charlotte Flair versus Natalya versus Nia Jax. Asuka is on commentary, being her usual brilliant self in this one. The story is very simple. It's Charlotte and Natalya, and they double team Nia Jax, and every time Nia Jax gets back into the match, they knock her back down. At one point, they give her a double powerbomb through the announce table. It's about halfway through the match, and it wipes her out for the time being. But then between that, we're seeing chain wrestling from Charlotte Flair and Natalya back and forth. Into this match, about 3/4 of the way through, Asuka picks up the announce tabled body of Nia Jax and pushes her into the ring to get Natalya to cover her. But alas, she doesn't quite get the job done. Goes for an armbar on Jax, and Jax hits a powerbomb. Figure 8 attempt, sharpshooter attempt, big old Tower of Doom late in the match. Charlotte puts the figure 8 onto Natalya. Nia Jax breaks it up with a leg drop onto Charlotte, and then finishes off Natalya with a Samoan drop for the 1, 2, 3. And Asuka and Nia Jax stare each other down as the match ends. B- for this one. A lot of B's this week. I feel like a beehive. B- this week for this. It was some really good stuff in there. I think it was probably one of the better matches that Asuka's had. I enjoyed some of the back and forth between all three. I thought they all worked really hard. It was kind of missing a little something, in my opinion. And also, Nia Jax winning it probably takes the wind out of my sails a bit. Despite the fact that this is the obvious way where they're going, I'm not buying Nia Jax facing Asuka, which is why the grade comes down a little bit. But, there was a lot of stuff in there to like. In terms of, so much of the night has been short matches, so this was a match that probably got the most time tonight. And it was all right. R-Truth says he's coming to get Gronk, not Tom Brady. Then Gronk cuts a promo, which is fine until he takes his glasses off. And we realise that he is reading the promo from just underneath the camera. So he's not making eye contact at all. Imagine if I did graded like this. I mean, admittedly, I'd never make a single mistake because I'd just be, as I am right now, reading the words written on my phone, balanced under the camera. But do you not feel really disconnected as I'm not even making eye contact with you? It's not a good look. I don't like people who have a camera there but don't make eye contact. Eye contact is important, Gronk. I don't care if you've got eyes in the back of your head. I just want one pair of eyes to look at me when you're promoing, son. Liv Morgan cuts a promo saying she's living her best life. Cool. Main event o'clock, Street Profits versus MVP and Lashley. This is Lashley dominating Montez Ford for a long old time in this. We see Dawkins get a tag, light up on MVP. Lashley doesn't really take any offense in this. It's MVP taking all the shoeing on behalf of his team. At the end of the match, we see the pinfall after the cash out onto MVP. Lashley jumps into the ring. He's the illegal man, puts the full Nelson on Ford. The ref counts to 5, and Lashley doesn't leave the ring. So that's a DQ. Well, we're getting a walk through the referee's guidebook in the last couple of weeks on Raw. So if you don't leave the ring after a 5 count, that's a paddling. And they win the match by DQ. Literally moments after this match finished, out comes Drew McIntyre, and they get into it there. And the refs can't split Drew and Lashley up, so they actually wave to the crowd, to the trainees in the crowd, say, come and help. Help us out here. So a few trainees get in, get hoofed away. A few more come in and get hoofed away. And then loads come in. And we get a good old-fashioned pull-apart brawl to end Raw this week. Hey, I've given everything else pretty much B's tonight, so let's end on a B. A B- for our main event tonight. The match was all right. I think the big thing for me was the performance by Montez Ford. And the pull apart at the end looked really cool, with all the trainees coming in from the crowd, breaking social distancing. Although you have to ask, I know the answer to this is because they're trying to show willing by saying, look, we've got plexiglass up to stop social to keep social distancing. What's the point putting plexiglass up to stop people breathing on the wrestlers if at the end of the night the entire crowd's going to jump into the ring anyway? I don't know. Raw was a B this week. Very B heavy this week. It just so happens that there was nothing that was exceptional and worthy of anything above an A-, with the exception of Edge's promo, in my opinion. But there was nothing that was particularly dreadful. I think everything was pitched quite well. We've got some new characters on Raw that we are building very nicely. We had some short, sharp matches on Raw that were good. Even the Street Profits Viking Raiders stuff this week was entertaining. So we've done all right overall this week. I'm giving Raw a B. And as I said at the beginning, I'm happy to see crowds again. I'm happy to see my boy Luke Menzies on the hard cam the whole night through. Love you, Luke. Stay safe. Love you. Bye.